That's odd. Usually the blood gets off at the second floor.
Hey, what's up everyone? Foxy here. Have you ever wanted to make Aura of Decay work and it just hasn't? Well, that's been my life for every season. I've made guides on Aura of Decay. I've managed to push as far as I can. But this season 3 looks really promising, and we're going to look at a bleed build of Aura of Decay. Now, I've seen a few guides on this already. I've been cooking on this since I found out about the changes. I'm going a slightly different route. And what I've done is I aim in this video to not only show you what I'm doing, but kind of explain why I'm doing it as well. So you're not just like paint by numbers, you actually get why I'm doing it. And I'll try to keep it short as well. So without further ado, let's go into the skills and we'll cover it off as we go along. So Aura of Decay is our big ticket item for this build, and it's basically going to be run via blood font, converting all of our poison dots into bleed dots and all our poison resistance into physical resistance for this tree. And we're going to be just applying dot, 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 dot. The purpose of this line here is basically to allow us to apply more dots quicker. And we'll also be applying more bleed dots to ourselves. Now, in the past, that's been quite deadly. However, in this build that I'm showing you, we don't take bleed damage, so we don't care about that. We're going to be using a low life Exanguous build, and the chest piece Exanguous means we don't take bleed damage. If you find that you haven't found Exanguous, it's pretty easy to find. You might need to have some points in absence of life and inoculation just to keep you alive for a bit until you find that piece, but basically you don't really need this node anymore. And we have health regen for other reasons that we'll get into when we talk about the passive tree. We need lots of health regen, basically. Here's just more area for our Aura of Decay, which is always good. Big ring of blood, always fun. And we're going to try out Festa this season. So Festa is new to season 3. It's basically a damage multiplier of Aura of Decay, which is what we really want, right? Aura of Decay kind of suffers in that it doesn't always do that much damage, and now it's going to do more damage with this. And I'm going to try this out. If it's not good, we can redistribute some of these points elsewhere. I'd be looking at increasing the points in here and redistributing them. The rest of these nodes aren't very useful. They might be okay. Poison skin means you get more stacks of poison when you're hit, but you inflict more poison, and that will be turned to bleed chance. But in reality, I don't really like to bet on myself being hit. It's not a really great strategy to design yourself to be punched in the face, unless your build is designed to be punched in the face, if that's your sort of thing. So moving on to Flay. So Flay is kind of the new skill for our Lich. It's pretty badass. It's similar to the gloves everyone's getting excited about, the carrion gloves. They've got a primordial blood eruption, which is like a better version of the second component of Flay. So Flay does melee, and it also does spell damage in the form of a blood eruption. And what I've done on all of these spells is make sure they all kind of scale with the same thing. So all of these scale with spell damage, all of these scale with intelligence, and all scale with physical, other than Aura of Decay, which doesn't scale with spell damage, but scales with the other things. So that's what you want to think about when you're building, that all your gear that you add and all your passive trees, they're all scaling in the same direction, so all your skills get better, not just individual ones. So yeah, the blood eruption here is like a weaker version of the primordial eruption, but should still be good, and everyone loves big explosions of blood. It's cool. So blood eruption, this basically I'm navigating through here to get to the Aura of Decay buff. So every time you use Flay, it's going to buff how fast Aura of Decay ticks and its radius, which is really powerful if we're scaling Aura of Decay like we are. There's a few things to note here. There's a few like bonuses to spell damage, chance to haste, so you go faster, which is always good. And then down this tree here, we are actually looking to scale with our spell damage with our maximum mana, which is great. And also, I took one in this node. I'll take 2 if I could, which just means we have a chance to proc Chaos Bolt as well, which we've got a Chaos Bolt tree here as well, which we'll go into soon. So into soon. Yep. And then Blood Waltz as well. If you've got more points, put more into that. That just spreads our blood eruption even further. This is really important though. Bleed chance and bleed duration. This is increased. Duration is really important for any dot build. Basically allows you to stack and ramp those stacks a lot easier. And then this node here, increase our bleed chance again and damage over time with a slight attack speed penalty. So moving on to Chaos Bolts. So with the Chaos Bolt tree, Chaos Bolts is just awesome. When they hit, they'll apply bleed. The nodes we're really caring about here is down here. We convert all of it, our necrotic and damned, into physical conversion and bleed chance, similar to what we did with the Aura of Decay. And we're just going to stack damn chance, hit damage to all these different things are going to apply to bleeding. That's what we care about here. and deal more damage over time per missing health. And I'll explain why that's really powerful when we get to our gear, because we're going to basically be always missing 50% of our health, which sounds bad, but is actually insane. So, and also this is just going to increase the duration of our Infernal Shades, which we'll cover in a second. This stuff is just all more damage at the cost of mana. And that's about it for this. I don't want to make this video last forever. Oh yeah, Bone Curse as well. But I love a good Bone Curse. So this is just going to apply Bone Curse as well. And curses are good. Moving on to Rip Blood. It is pretty good for this node here. Because it will basically, when you cast it and it kills something, it has the chance to cast again. So you're going to be like auto casting Rip Blood, which is always fun. These just are scaling the damage. But this is an important one as well, right? When you directly cast Rip Blood and hit at least one enemy, you gain additional spell damage for 6 seconds. So we want to keep this up all the time because it'll buff our spell damage, which will then buff everything we're doing on these 4 scales here at the top. So that's great. And then I've just added cast speed because that's always good. Blood Splatter leaves a pool of blood on the floor, deals damage to enemies around them, so a bit more AoE damage, a bit more bleed chance, more damage over time. And this is really important as well. This is really the reason you get Rip Blood. This is going to scale per number of stacks you have on the enemy. So when you directly cast Rip Blood and hit a boss or rare enemy, it attaches Blood Tether. And that's multiplicative with the number of stacks you have of bleed chance. So this could be our real boss killing ability, basically. We're going to ramp and do more and more damage to the boss. And that's kind of the main reason to get this Rip Blood up, really. Because otherwise it doesn't do that much. Infernal Shade. So this is Infernal Shade is always a popular one. I've never particularly used it with the Aura Decay build. I couldn't really get it to work. But this season, I think it's gonna be pretty awesome. So again, surprise, surprise, we're converting all our damage to physical damage and bleed chance. So that's basically the long and the short of this Infernal Shade. You're going to attach these Infernal Shades. They're going to do ticking physical damage on top of our bleeds. But they're also going to shred the enemy's armor. So that means our physical hits, which is going to be a lot of these spells, like our Chaos Bolts, our Flay, our Rip Blood, is going to do more damage when you hit, which is great. And these just increase our duration and also allow the buff to reattach to another enemy. There's a chance to do it when the enemy dies. And I love auto casting. I'd put more points than this if I could, just so it would just keep passing it on to the next enemy, like pass the parcel. So I've done a whistle stop tour of the skills. Hopefully that's useful. If you have any questions, just shout in the comments if I've missed anything. There's lots of different ways you can build this, but this is the way I want to build this. Because my gear is a bit different to the other builds I've seen out there. I've not looked at too much, but I've had a few, and a lot of them are melee focused. Mine's more spell focused. First of all, the primordial weapon, Horn of the Bone Wisp. So basically what this does for our build is it scales our spell damage massively, increases our ward retention, which is going to be really important for us. Gives us a nice cheeky little flame ward, which is basically a defensive buff that's going to periodically just cast on ourselves. Gives us a loaded intelligence, which all our spells stat with. The minion stuff is a bit lost on us, but if you want to find a minion somehow and get it in there, that'll both boost that as well. And it increases our spell damage. So that's pretty good. Not the level skills and the intelligence is going to scale our dot. The spell damage is going to scale our hit, right? So the next one I want to talk about is the Sanguinus. So you know how I said earlier on in the Aura Decay tree, there is a node that might just completely take ourselves out if we get too much stacks of bleed. This solves that, but I wanted to include that in the earlier bit of the video in case people don't want to use this item. But basically we're going to go for a low life build here, and that's going to be the core of our build. Now there's a node on the passive tree, which I'll show you in a little bit. That basically means we always have 50% health, but we're always counted as low life. So basically we're immune to bleed, which is awesome. The only thing we're going to have to worry about is this drains 20% of our health per second. So we're going to have to get a boatload of leech, and we're going to get a load of health regen to keep ourselves alive. I've tried to keep everything to 1 LP unless they're super easy to find multiple LP items. This is one of those things that are really easy. It requires level 23, and there's I think a 1 in 14 chance to find an LP2, right? So it's pretty easy to get 2 LP on this, and the belt as well. The rest I've kept it to like 1 if I could. So it's realistic in early game. And if you get unlucky, you know, basically you want to be stacking health, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So moving on to the next bit, this is just a great shield, Flayer's Pride. It means we take less physical damage on block. We take less physical damage over time, which, although we're immune to bleed, we can take other sources of physical damage over time potentially. Chance to apply bleed on hit, that's what we want. Penetration is the key thing that we want. We get health, we get penetration, we get chance to bleed, we get intelligence, which scales all our spells, all our skills, sorry. And it reduces any health costs of spells, though I don't think that's going to really be an issue for us. Moving on to this, it's really, really good. It's more chance to apply bleed, more duration. Our physical damage over time, and that's the big one, is going to be leech back as health. That's going to help us stay alive. And also we get 20 health gained on kill per stack of bleed on the target. So if we're scaling this really quickly, which we will be, this is going to be pretty awesome. And what we've done is we've added the 2 levels of Aura Decay, which is like a T5 roll. Not impossible. 1 level is good as well. If you can get 2, that's better. 3, so on. You know, just sky's the limit. 1 LPC guarantee the slam if you find it. Now, I've seen loads of people going like, you use Rip Blood, so use the new Flay boots. I mean, they're good. They're good, don't get me wrong. But I'm more about the bleed duration here, and more physical damage on move, and also more attributes. The other boots are really, really good. I just, it's a preference. I think these are maybe a bit better, but you could switch them out if you have a preference to see auto-casting Rip Bloods. And that might be a little bit more quality of life, but I think this is, if you're going to min-max, I think this might be a little bit better, but open for debate. Also gives us armor, which reduces our physical damage, which is, you know, really good for us. This one is a bit tough. It's a really good pair of gloves, but they're really rare. So you'll eventually get them, but it takes a while, right? But this gives us increased damage over time, gives us more physical pen from the conversion of the critical strike multiplier, and the implicits increase our duration as well and give us more armor. So really good pair of gloves. Now, if you go like, Foxy, you've lost your mind, this is garbage, I don't like this, I don't like spells, boo. You can swap this out for the carrion gloves, which are the ones that cause explosions everywhere, but we're going to be causing explosions with our blood eruption anyway, so, you know, we can double up. I think this will be really good. I think there's a little bit of bait on the bleed, sorry, not this one, but the carrion ones. I think there's a bit of bait on the carrion one. I think people, they're a really good pair of gloves, but all these other conversions of other ailments into bleed, most bleed builds focus on bleed chance, right? So that conversion's not going to have that much effect unless you're going like a warlock build and you've got a ton of ailments coming out the wazoo. So they are really good gloves, but I don't think they're quite as good as everyone says. But they will be fun, so I might actually use them as well if I find that this, I don't need the levels. It isn't cutting it up, or it's really hard to find. And I'll probably put on whichever one I get first and then switch between them. This belt just straight up +1 to all our physical skills, so that's +1 extra levels. Bit of movement speed, more chance to bleed, some chance to reflect. Jobs are good, easy to find. Can get this while leveling. Lovely jubbly. So some honorable mentions, but are very much up for changing around. I've got a gold ring basically just to fill in our elemental resistances. This is just the average. Our max is like actually fully capped, so this is going to be super easy to cap. It's just giving us an average roll, but we're going to get that pretty easily. Font of the Rays, I like it because it gives us more health and mana, and we might be a bit mana starved in this build, so we might need to flick a few things around. But I'll summarize that right at the end of the items. We're almost done here. So, Pearls of the Swine, it gives us Decrepify, which basically does 200 physical damage over 10 seconds, I think, with 100% effect. It's just a really good physical dot, and that's what we're all about. It gives us ward per second on curses. We're going to be doing Bone Ward, but we're not going to have any curses on us, so that's a bit of a shame that we're going to lose that. But we are going to get Vitality, all resistances, all attributes. And there's also another amulet that I'll stick up in a little bit that converts all, I think it's void, necrotic, and maybe poison damage. I'll flick it up on the screen here into physical damage, which might be the way to go for our build. So if this isn't like working for you, if you don't feel like it's worth the value, that might be an option. So is Nihilus, as always, is also another option. I'll put those on the screen. This bone helmet, yeah, you could probably change this one, to be honest. It's probably the best unique I could think of. There's a few other ones that are probably almost as good, if not as good, but it gives us a load of armor, which I like. It's really easy to get LP on this, and it gives us a bit of ward per second per uncapped necrotic resistance, which as a acolyte lich you're going to have, you know, an overabundance of. So that's why I went for that. But honestly, you could just get a really good exalted item in here and it's fine as well. The blessings, let's do quickly blessings. We got void resistance to fill in our void loss here. We're not going to put void on any of our gear. Chance to apply bleed on hit for obvious reasons. More armor because, you know, physical damage conversion is going to reduce the damage we take. Chance to apply shred physical resistance. This is awesome. Basically means all the physical damage we do is going to be increased on the enemy because their resistances are going to be reduced. And I put mana here because I really think we're going to struggle with mana, right? So we'll have a play with this, but, you know, we'll see. I'll do another build at some point after the league start to let you know how things have gone and if I've changed anything. Very quickly, idols, not the most exciting thing. We're going to stack as much health and ward on these. Bit of armor, bit of reduced damage from crit strikes, bit of increased damage over time. I've stuck in a few elemental resistances here as well just to fill in the gaps. I want this to be tanky. The biggest problem with Acolyte is always tankiness. We can apply dots for days, but we just die before the boss dies. So the more we live, the faster the dots, the more we win. Okay, so enough about that. Hopefully that's been helpful. Do question anything. There's loads of other good weapons you can use, but I really want to go down the spell route. Lots of people doing the other builds if you're interested in the more melee route. Okay, and if you do go for those other gloves, just stick in a really good exalted item that has like bleed chance, bleed pen, bleed, the usual. So passives on our acolyte tree, really simple. We're going to be increasing the damage we do and draining life from ourselves, but we're going to gain more wards per missing health. And this is probably where I show you this node here. So your current health and your ward cannot exceed 50% of your maximum health. You always count as being at low life. So if you read this note how now, we will always have 50% missing health. So that's, you know, that's broken for a lot of reasons we'll show you in a second. We might need to lower this if we find that we're, you know, killing ourselves too quickly. We might have to reduce some points here and redistribute them into more health regen, more vitality. But I'm going to play it by ear and just kind of adjust as I go. More intelligence, which scales all our spells. A bit of ward decay threshold, bit of ward retention. Again, we can look at balancing this. We can't get, because of the node here, we can't get more than 50% of our health as ward, which is why we want to stack as much health as possible so we can get as much ward as possible. Now, if you find that you just got so much ward that you don't know what to do with it, you can start taking these points out and again start increasing our health instead. Going to be a bit of a balancing act, that bit. So onto the, I'll do the Lich tree now. So basically stacking intelligence, mana regen, and it also then applies to our armor, which is great. We need armor. More increased damage. This is a really important node. When at low life, this effect is tripled. So we're just straight up getting 120% damage, increased damage permanently, just for free. But it's for 8 points. So basically free. Shared bleed chance, shared frostbite chance. This is purely for the bleed chance, but if you are using the carrying gloves, you know, you're going to double dip here. It's going to count towards your bleed chance twice. Vitality for obvious reasons, and also it means that our vitality counts towards our health regen. Very important. And this is something we can put more points in if we find that we've got too much ward. Okay, so onto the pen again. If you've got spare points, just ramp up the physical pen. And this is, again, more health. And this is important. We get delayed hit damage from bosses and rares. And that's 10%. So that just delays some of the damage we take, which allows us to then use our leech and our health regen to recover that loss instead of just being one shot. I don't think we should be one shot this league. I hope not. I'm sure it will happen early game, but late game, if we're building correctly, we shouldn't be. I've already talked about this. Just more health and more endurance threshold. And I'll put a pair of a belt on the screen now. When you get to the point where you can get this brewery belt, that's going to basically give us, I think it's like 50% endurance, and 50% of our health is covered by endurance. As we're always on 50% health, we will always be endurance, like full-on endurance covered, which should be a massive defensive buff if we find that we're too squishy. So that's an option as well to switch out from the thorns. Okay, and then this is less damage over time taken. This isn't going to make a difference if we're wearing Sanguis from the stuff we do to ourselves, but what enemy dots do to us, this is going to reduce that damage, which is really good. It does mean our damage also bypasses our ward into our health, and then we'll get it back via our leech, which is done by a Cursed Feast. So that's going to massively buff our feast. which it will turn off when we hit 66% health. We're never going to hit 66% health, so this is permanently buffing us, which is hilarious. Then we go on to the final bit of the Warlock tree. It's looking a bit sorry for itself here. More health, more damage over time. We're going to have bleed chance here, and we're going to have increased physical damage and blood overload, which is awesome, and the chance to cast Rip Blood as well on top. So that's probably what I'll take from here. You could probably lose, like I'd lose maybe 2 points from here to get it down to 5 if you really want to give some points somewhere else. That might be some min-maxing you can do. So I think that just about wraps it up. Hopefully this has been useful, and hopefully I've actually given you an explanation of why I've done something rather than just telling you what to do. And hopefully you like that. If you don't like that and you do want me to just say what to do, shout out in the comments. I'd like to know. And also, if you want to see a poison variant of this, let me know. I did one in season 2, and I did one in season 1. Basically, every season I do Aura of Decay. This is the first time I've tried Bleed. But if you want a poison variant, do shout out. I've got a few videos on the past seasons versions of them. But they're probably going to be quite different now, if I'm totally honest, from because of all the changes in the primordials. But we're just going to get a massive buff, right? It's going to be even better than it was last season. And I think it's going to be really strong, the poison variant as well. I've just done it to death. That's why I'm trying the bleed. I think bleed's kind of cool as well. And I like explosion. What can I say? So yeah, if you've enjoyed this, chuck us a subscribe. Or, you know, just watching this, I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. I'm still rambling. I have no idea what my outro should be. So this is going to be it.